The problems that comes with it is that at the end of the day, if you do not, it becomes a problem. So we are going to quickly structure our directory environment. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go to Google and then look for the icon for an OU. OU icon image. Okay, let's just use this icon here, even though the actual icon in Active Directory looks a bit different, but I think we can manage with this. And you do realize that when even I was just searching for the icon, you can see that there is that structure there. So it means that it's very, very important for you to structure your Active Directory. And if you do structure it, it will go a long way to help you to manage your environment. All right, so I'm just going to download this image. And all right, so let me just put it in downloads and then save. And then I'm going to open Paint. Again, any diagram that we are doing here, you can achieve the same thing with Microsoft Visio or any other diagramming tool that you are familiar with. At the end of the day, what is important is that you get it right and you plan it. There should be some plan there. That is what is more important. So we can decide to structure our thing this way. So what I'm going to do is that downloads, and I'm just going to pick this open with things, and then I will just select all this, and I'll just copy it, and then I will come here, and then I'll paste it here, but this is too big, so I'll just reduce the size. This is even still too big, so maybe something like this is okay, but you can decide to structure it anyhow you want. So what I want to do is, you normally use organizational units to represent the departmental breakdown of the organization, depending on the departments within the environment. That will determine how you are going to structure your OU. So we have our domain at the top here. Let me just insert this triangle here to represent our domain. So our domain is called maverick.local. In fact, you can actually use whatever name you want, but to be on the safer side and then to ensure that we are referencing the same things, let's all just use the Maverick. Later, you can create a different lab and do whatever you want to do with it. So maverick.local. So this is our domain. And within this domain, we have How many departments should we have in our environment? How many departments? Maybe we can do it. We can do 4, right? And so 4, we will do the usual ones that are there. There's going to be IT, there's going to be HR, there'll be finance, and then which one?
The first part they were saying.
I can't hear you.
And we were saying 4 departments is okay.
Yes, so what departments are we going to have?
So normally every company has an IT department,
Yeah.
a sales department,
Uh-huh.
HR.
Yes. They
We
won't
have
pay
a
money.
finance as well.
Uh-huh. The finance is the most important one.
Yeah.
Because if monies are not flowing, there will be trouble. Control Z. All right, so we'll have these 4 departments. So I'm just going to quickly plan our OU structure like that, and you should just spend some time to plan your OU structure. It's very important because if it is not planned, it'll be very, very hot.
Balu, are you the one responsible to plan this structure, or the company needs to assist you?
So
So
mostly what will happen is this. If you are employed as the systems administrator, you are supposed to first understand the working environment. That's the first thing. Once you are employed as a systems administrator, if you are fortunate that maybe you are going to start everything from scratch. Okay. If you are going to start everything from scratch, then what it means is that you will have to plan everything from scratch.
Use the expenses route. Okay.
That means you are going to
Use the
start
back.
everything from scratch. Are we okay? But if for any reason you go and then maybe it's already done and whoever did it did not do well, that one you are fucked. Yeah. So if you happen to find yourself in an environment where it was properly done, then what it means is that yeah, you don't have a problem. Yours is to, if not, when you go and it was not properly done, to be on the safer side, you will have to restructure it. Do you get it?
Okay.
But it's just a matter of understanding the organizational structure. That's all. Once you understand the organizational structure, you are good to go.
I see that, man. I recognize it. Then that place move. You move faster. No, where you fast?
Please mute your mic if you don't have a question. Okay, so I'm just going to just duplicate. I'll just do one and then just copy and paste and then put the names there. So, but again, you see the way I'm struggling with this thing. If you have a good tool, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Because there are some tools that I'm just using Paint, but then there are some tools out there that you can just use and then this will happen easy for you.
Louis.
Yeah.
So when you are not able to plan your OUs very well, you won't be able to account for some of the assets in the system or what?
Oh, you'll be able to. The problem you will have will do with the management of your environment. Do you get it?
Okay.
It will, I mean, searching for things in the AD, it will be very easy. But let's take, for example, you integrate, let's say, an antivirus into your environment. And then you want to have different policies for the different departments in the antivirus, it becomes a problem. Even with group policy, it becomes a problem because group policies are linked to OUs and then domains. So if the organization decides that we want a certain policy to apply to only a certain people, it becomes you are going to have an issue there.
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Okay.
Yeah.
And one more question. What
Go
of
Lou, example of
the
might be a problem.
No, one at a time, please. So let the other person finish with their question.
so okay, please, you can go. I'm still thinking about the question. I want to frame it very well so everyone can understand it from my point of view.
Okay, Vijay.
I was asking, I say, like, example of some policy that you think will be a problem if the structure is not well.
No, in fact, all policies, let's say we decide that a certain department should have a certain type of wallpaper, another department should have a certain type of wallpaper. We want some people, let's say because the IT people are okay, we want to set a policy so they can have access to control panel. We don't want everyone else to have access to control panel. Like you have different kind of policies within the environment that when you structure your things well, it becomes easy. Even when it comes to creating permissions, files, and folders. You know, in an environment, not everyone is supposed to have access to every type of folder. So at the end of the day, if you do not structure your environment well, you may end up having a situation where anyone can access anything. Are we clear?
Yes, it's very clear, sir.
So once you do it well, that's all. You are good to go. You are covered, like for life. This one is not a SM movement. For life is for life.
If they then you from the job, you do
Then
good job,
you say if they do what?
then sack you.
So if they sack you, the person who will come will praise you and say that, Charlie, this guy who was here, he was a really good guy. If you don't do it well, to the person who come will insult you, because he will come and inherit a mess that he will have to fix. Are we okay?
Louis,
Yes.
so proper planning of the OU, does it help in remote deployment?
You said, does it help in what?
Remote deployment.
What define remote deployment?
So let's say, for example, you have a head office and then a branch. So a typical example would be a bank.
Yeah.
And then you want to access or deploy an EDR or anything on let's say branch machines.
This one, you want to use me to solve your problem you have in your office.
You know that, ma.
No, but shoot.
Yeah. So does it?
Yes, so you see, planning goes even beyond, it even goes with even the naming structure of the systems. Are we okay?
Okay.
Because if you don't plan it well, and if you don't name your assets well, it will be difficult to identify them on the network. Do you get me?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 4 departments as we all agreed to. So the first department here is going to be HR. Are we okay? No. The first department will be HR. Then the next department will be finance. Then we have IT. Are we okay? And then we have what else do we have here?
Sales department.
Okay, let's do marketing, and then under marketing we may have sales and then all the other things there.
Okay.
Or sales or market. Which one falls under which one?
Now marketing should be first.
Marketing. Yeah.
All right, so we have marketing here. I hope I spelled it right. So here we are going to have an OU for the users within the marketing. Are we okay? And then here we will have what we call roles. Now I'm using roles here to represent the sub functions within the department. You know, you have HR as a function, but when you go within HR, there may be some people responsible for staffing, others responsible for training, others responsible for whatever they may be responsible for. Are we okay? So we'll put all those roles under the roles there, and then this would be computers or PCs for the department. Are we okay?
Yeah.
All right, so again, let's do the lazy work. We just copy everything from here. All right, and then again, and then finally, let me drag this a bit. Finally, we have this. Good. So at the end of the day, we have this simple structure for our organizational units. And so with this planned, let me save it.
I beg you do add and drop the picture too for the group.
Yeah, I'll put it in the group. All right. So with this, you know that you have something to work with. Are we okay? So now we can go on to our server and then we can make this happen. So whilst we are going to be doing this, I just want to quickly run my Nessus and then start the Nessus scan so that by the time we finish on the server side, the Nessus will be done. We'll finish scanning the, oh no, let's finish the AD stuff and then we'll run the scan later. Let's just finish the AD stuff. All right. So, I'm going to quickly power on my machine.
Charlie,
All right.
anytime they do class, the way they enjoy your machine for a year. My lab,
Get away the door.
we they do class, the way they enjoy the ASUS for a year, your machine.
Ah, so you don't go sell that machine, give me back. All right. So let's continue. So I think this is exactly where we left off the other time. We went through all these containers and we are going to create our OU structure. So you can see that our domain is there. And then these are the objects under the domain. You can just close this and then it's gone like that. And then when you expand, it comes. So this is our domain tree. Okay, so there are a few ways that you can create objects in Active Directory. You can use a graphical user interface. You can also use the PowerShell. You can also use, and even in the graphical user interface, there are still a few ways that you can do. So I will show you the graphical user interface, and then I'll also show you how to use the PowerShell to do that. So we will create two with the graphical user interface, and then we'll create two using the PowerShell. Is that clear?
Yeah.
All right. So in the graphical user interface, again, there are two ways that you can do this. The first thing is you can right click on the domain, or you can right click on the location where you want the object to be. Because if I want it to be under domain controllers, I can right click on the domain controllers and do it there. But because I want it to be directly linked under the root domain, I'll right click this, then I can go to new, then I can create the organizational unit. It's the same thing for users when you want to create a user. If you want to create a computer, it's the same thing. Just like that, you right click and then you are good to go. That is one way. The other way to do this is you can also, when you look at the top here, there are some icons here. So you have to make sure that the location where you want to create the object is selected. You have to make sure that the location where you want to create the object is selected. So once the location is selected, you can click on the icon. So if it's a user, you can click on this. If it's a group, you can click on this. If it's an OU, in that case, you want to create an OU, you can click on that. So you just click on that. It's very simple. And then you create an OU. So we'll call this HR. Now you notice that there is a box that says protect container from accidental deletion. Now this is to ensure that once you create an OU, you cannot just right click on it and then delete it. So I'm just going to click OK. And just like that, we have the OU created. Now, when we want to create a child OU, you don't go back to the Maverick because the OU you want to create is under HR. So we'll just click the HR again and then click the object. And then this time we just have users. And then, okay. Now be careful when you are doing this because you notice that after creating the users, it is the users that is selected. So it means if I go ahead to want to create another OU, it's going to create that OU under the users. So you have to go one step up, select the HR again, and then you create another OU called computers. Okay.
Does that mean when you create, you can't delete it?
You can delete it. Don't worry, I'll show you how to delete it. So let me just make the mistake of creating the last one, which is rows. So you notice that the rows falls under this. But when I want to delete and I right click and I go to delete, are you sure you want to delete? When I say yes, it says you do not have sufficient privileges to delete rows. But I'm logged in as administrator, and so I should be able to delete this. Are we okay? I should be able to delete this, but it's not allowing me. You know why? Because of that protect the container from accidental deletion. So if you want, and if, okay, fine. So you decide, okay, if it won't allow me to delete, let me go and uncheck that box. When you go to properties and then you check, you will realize that the option is not there. So what you will do is that you have to go to view and then enable the advanced features. And then now when you come to the HR, you right click and you go to properties. The tabs is going to increase. So you have more tabs. So now when you come to objects, you can see protect object from accidental deletion. So you can check this and then you can apply and then okay. Hey, I did it on the HR instead. Let me go back, properties. But then, I mean, the aim is clear. Apply,
Yeah.
and then, okay. So I'll just expand this and then expand the computers. Right click this, properties,
Yeah.
objects. And then now I can uncheck this. But instead of deleting, I will not delete, rather I will move it. And there are two ways you can move an object. You can drag it, or you can right click
Okay.
and say move. So I'll move and then put it directly under the HR, click OK, and then it gets in place. I'm going to go back to the view and then I'm going to disable the advanced features. So if I expand the HR, I have my objects underneath there, just as we had, or we chose in the, what's the name? Just as we have in our structure. So you have HR and then you have these things under it. So I'm going to do the next one very, very fast because we've already gone through. So, finance. All right, so this is done. So this is one way to create the objects. So I'm going to quickly walk you through how to use the PowerShell to also create these objects. So the PowerShell is one of the scripting tools in the Windows Server environment, and there are two options. You have the PowerShell, you have the PowerShell ISE. We'll use the ISE because at least that one is a bit friendly. If you are new to PowerShell, you can use the ISE to familiarize yourself with the PowerShell. Because with that one, it has some kind of, what's the name, GUI that you can actually use. So you can see that all the commands that you can ever type are all here. Are we okay? All the commands that you can ever type are all here. So it's a matter of either selecting any of them. If you know what you want to do, you can just search for it. You can drop down, you can say you only want the commands for Active Directory, and then it will give you the commands for Active Directory. So we want to create an organizational unit. So we can look for new AD organizational units. So this is it. No. Okay, so past the new, we have to remove. So new AD organizational units. You get it, and you can say insert, and then it will just come for you. Are you okay? So that is just one thing that I like. After this, so new AD organizational unit means you want to create a new organizational unit. And then the next thing is you need to specify the name. So you add the switch name. Are we okay? You add the switch name. And then from here, you can put in quotes. So what's the name of the next OU marketing? So the name is marketing. Can you see my screen, or I should increase the font?
Oh, you can see.
I should increase the font.
We can see.
All right, then that's fine. So after this, we specify the path. Where is it located? Where is it located? And so you see, once you start typing, like it gives you options. Are we okay? So path, and then put another quote. We put another quote. So there's something we call distinguished name. Are we okay? Distinguished names is in the slide. I'll walk you through. So whenever you are creating any object using the command, you need to specify the distinguished name. So the first thing we want to use is DC. Are we okay? DC means domain. So what is the name of the domain? So the domain is Maverick, right? Maverick. Then you put comma, and then DC again equals to, and then you put local. Now someone will ask, why do you have two DCs there? We have two DCs because when you take a domain structure, when you take any domain structure, let's say www.google.com, there are three elements in there. The www points you to the host name. Are we okay? The Google is the subdomain name. and then the .com or the com is the top level domain name. These all points to servers or systems in the cyberspace. So you need to identify each of the components by providing the name for it. So basically, this should create an organizational unit called marketing. Are we okay? So I just hit enter, and it looks like nothing has happened, right? It looks like nothing has happened. But when we come to our Active Directory here, and then I refresh this, actions, refresh. Or better still, let me click on this itself and then refresh. So once it refreshes, you can see that marketing has been created there. So this is also another way of creating. So how will we create the sub OU? So it's the same thing, but then the path will change. Are we okay? The path will change. So we'll add other elements to the path, like the OU, where it's supposed to be. Okay. And so we want to create users. So we want to create users. So new AD organizational unit, name, users, path is going to be under OU called marketing. And this OU called marketing is under the domain Maverick, which is under the top level domain name local, just like that. So I just hit enter and that is done. So I'm just going to bring back this, clear the users, put rows there, and then just hit enter. Bring the cursor back again, clear the rows, put computers there, and then just hit enter. So just like that, this is done. So sometimes some people feel that the PowerShell, when you are scripting in the PowerShell, is much easier and faster if you know your way around it. Maybe they are not wrong. All right, so again, I'll just go back to the top. Fetch the very first command. And instead of marketing, we'll call this, what's the last one? IT, right? IT. So I'll just hit enter and then IT is created. And I'll pick one of the long commands, change the O back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear
sir.
you.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
So
Welcome back.
as the thing is getting interesting, the network wanted to misbehave. All right. So back here, share screen. All right. So I All right, so I was here. I've already done the computer, so I'll quickly do the okay. So I've done computers. All right, so I just have to do users and then rows. And then I'll quickly do the rows, and then that is it. So you realize that creating the OUs is not really a big deal. It's just a matter of some few seconds and then you are done. But if you don't plan it well, this can go a long way to disturb you. It will go a long way to disturb you. So you always have to make sure that you make time to properly plan the OU environment. So with this, that is it. So we can come to Active Directory and then we can just check to see if this is done. So I just right click here and then say refresh. And yes, so we have HR, we have IT, marketing, and finance. And when you expand each of them, you have computers, roles, users, computers, roles, users, computers, roles, users. So this bit is done. So what this means is that the computers for each department will be put under the computers OU, even though in some environments, some administrators prefer to put all the computers under the computers container. But for manageability purposes, you can actually group the computers based on the departments that they are in. So basically, this is how you create organizational units. It's that simple. So let's go back to the slides. All right, so yeah, there's a file that I normally use. Let me see if it's still in my Dropbox for creating plenty users. Let me just check if it's in my Dropbox. Okay, so we are back here. So what this is just giving you the steps in creating OUs. Just the steps in creating OUs. Yeah. And I think we haven't done anything so far in the Active Directory Administrative Center. Don't worry, I'll open the Active Directory Administrative Center for you to see how things look over there. And then understanding distinguished names. So Active Directory uses lightweight directory access protocol to supply the naming conventions for objects. The distinguished names are the complete path through the hierarchical tree structure of a specific object. So as we saw when we were creating the objects in the PowerShell, we realized that we have to specify the exact location where the file is located. That's what we call the distinguished names. So the following are the components that make up a distinguished name. So you have the OU, you have the DC, which is domain component, and you have the CN, which is the common name. This attribute represents the leaf object itself within the directory service. So when we say the leaf object, we are talking about if it's a user that you are creating, or if it is a group that you are creating, the common name represents that particular object. Then the distinguished name that uses DC attribute will have one DC for every domain level below root. So depending on the domain level. So if, for example, we have, let's say, google.com.gh. It means we have 3 levels of the domain. So you have 3 DC elements in there. You have 1 DC for the Google, 1 DC for the com, 1 DC for the GH. That's how it goes. So let's see how we can create users now that we have created OUs. All right. So a user account is used by Windows to determine what changes you can make on the computer, to determine which files and folders you have access to, and to track personal preferences such as the choice of desktop wallpaper. So basically your user account stores your profile, everything that you do on the system, what you can do, and then how you have configured your desktop experience. There are standard accounts used to perform daily tasks on the computer that are limited in what they can do, as well as administrative accounts. So in a Windows environment, we can have standard accounts, and then we can have administrative accounts. So some accounts will allow you to do certain things. Some accounts are just for basic stuff. All right. So when you are creating Active Directory objects, there are some few things that you need to be abreast with. One is authentication, which is basically the process of confirming a user's identity by using a known value, such as password, a smart card, or a fingerprint. Then you have local users. These users can only access resources on the local computer, and they are stored in the local security account manager or the SAM database on the computer where they reside. So if you have your own system, any account you create on your system is a local account, unless in modern times where we have Microsoft accounts. Those accounts are not local accounts. Then we have the domain users. Domain users can access ADDS or network-based resources such as shared folders and printers. So in this environment, what we are going to be creating, we are going to be creating domain users. And if you notice, when we started the installation, there was an account that was created called administrator. Even though it was a local account, when we upgraded the server to become a domain controller, automatically that account also became a domain account. Is it clear? All right.
Yeah.
So one of the most common tools you can use in creation of Active Directory user objects. In Windows Server, there are so many tools. The specific tool you use depends on how many objects you need to create, the time frame available for the creation of these groups, and any special circumstances such as importing users from an existing database. So these all determine the kind of tool that you use for your user account creation. So we can use DSAdd, we can use PowerShell, we can use a CSVD file, we can use an LDAP data interchange format directory exchange. This is used to import ADDS information and uses it to add, delete, or modify objects in addition to modifying the schema if necessary. So all these are tools that you can actually use to create users. So I won't bore you with this. Let's just go in and then look at some of the ways that we can create users. But most of the time, administrators are stuck with Active Directory users and computers. But then let me, just for the benefit of being able to see the Active Directory Administrative Center, we'll go back to the Server Manager, go to Tools, and then we'll select Active Directory Administrative Center. So you can use Active Directory Administrative Center to manage IT tasks and so on and so forth. So you can see our domain is listed here. Are we okay? And when we expand or click on it, you can see all the objects that are in it. So when we click on our Maverick, all the objects come in there. And one thing that you can do is we have what we call Active Directory Recycle Bin. Active Directory, you know, when you delete anything in Active Directory, it's gone. Are we okay? I think I now remember where the lost and found is. But when you enable the Active Directory Recycle Bin, when you delete something, it goes to sit in the Active Directory Recycle Bin, and that's where you can find the lost and found is going to be sitting. So if I want to create a user in IT, I will first have to open IT. And then when I open IT, we have all the OUs here. So I want to create a user. Are we okay? I want to create a user. So right from here, you can see new on the right side. And then you can decide whether you want to add another organizational unit. We just want to create a user. So once you select that, everything about the user comes. And remember, we said that Active Directory is a database. So you can specify all the things that you want to specify here. Some of them are required. Not everything is required, but some are required. So the most important things that are required are the full name and then the user logon name. Are we okay? The user logon name, these are required. And then you can see things like user must change password at next logon. So this basically mixes everything that you are supposed to do on a user account. So you can come down and specify the department the person is working, their phone number, their email address, their job title, and all these things. But mostly system administrators don't do these things. The time is not there. The luxury is not there for them to do all these things. These are also available in the Active Directory users and computers, but then they are in tabs and you don't have to interface with all of them at once. But just for demonstration purposes. And one other thing, before you jump into creating users, you also need to decide the user creation, the username standard you are going to use. There is no specific standard though. You can decide to use the initial of the first name and the full last name, the first name dot the last name, the first name underscore the last name, the first name hyphen the last name. You can do whatever you want to do as an administrator. You just have to make sure that it is standardized so that everywhere within the organization you have the same naming structure so that everything becomes uniform. That's all. But there isn't any particular I don't know how to put it, like there isn't one de facto standard of creating your users. It's your environment. You decide how you want things to happen. So this is how the Active Directory Administrative Center looks like. So I think I feel safer at the users and computers. So I'm going to go back to the users and computers, and then we can create our users from here. All right. So from here, we have, so I think I'll put me in IT. I'll put me in IT. And then, and you know, like I said, the structure is not, you can even sort of having roles, you can actually even decide that within IT, we have applications, we have software, we have this. You can even still break down the OU structure to that granular level. If that is what will solve your problem, you can do it. But then again, we are just sticking with this. So I want to create a user, so I just use the user icon here. And then, you know, because as usual, it's my class, so let me create my account first. So Luis and then Jenfi. Are we okay? And then the user logon name. So I'm going to go with the traditional initial of the first name and then the full last name. So LJenfi at maverick.local. And when I'm logging in, this is how it's going to be. Then I'll click next. I have to specify a password. Now, as an administrator, you're supposed to have a default password that you give to your users. And then when they log in, they change their password. Under no circumstance are you as an administrator supposed to know the passwords of your users. Under no circumstance. Because once you know the passwords of the users, that is a breach of confidentiality and integrity. And that is not safe, because what it means is that when anything happens on the person's machine and the person says it is not him, the next question will be who else knows the password? And if the system administrator knows it, he is fired, because it's going to be the accused one. So you are never supposed to know the passwords of your employees or your users. I'm just going to put a very basic password here, and I'm going to require the user to change the password at next logon. So when you specify the default password, when the user logs in, the system will prompt him to change his password. And you can also say user cannot change password. This is dangerous because this will override the user must change password. And then password never expires. This is also dangerous because if you have an environment where the user's password is not expiring, then there is trouble. Then we have account is disabled. Account is disabled. So sometimes you may create the account for the person, but the person has not yet started work. So the account can be disabled. Or when someone goes on leave, you can disable the account. Or when someone leaves the organization, the best practice is for you to disable the person's account until you are sure that you don't need anything from the person's account before you go ahead and delete the account. If not, you will be very, 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 very hot. All right. So with that said, we click next, and it gives us a summary. We click finish. And just like that, we have our user, the Louis Genfi, with the description, and then it is that is how you create a user. That's how you create a user. And then what can you do about the user? When you right click the user as an administrator, you can copy the user. When we say you are copying the user, remember you can't have two instances of the user. But when we say you are copying the user, what it means is that you are creating a user out of the properties that this user has. Let me show you an example. Let's say I come here and I want to create a user that has to be an administrator. And let's look at the properties of the administrator. When you go to member of, the administrator is a member of all these groups. This is what gives the administrator his power, because each of these groups has certain permissions that they have. And because the administrator is a member of all these groups, the administrator has the power to do whatever he wants to do in the network environment. So if I want to create a user who has all these powers, I can right click on the administrator and then say copy. And then when I say copy, I can specify, let's say I want to make VJ an administrator. So I can say David VJ, and then I can just say D VJ, and then next. And you notice that it says his password never expires. This is because the administrator password is configured to never expire. So automatically he inherits that right. I'm going to uncheck this, and then I'm going to require him to change his password. I'm going to click next, and then I click finish. So you see we have a user here called what? David VJ. When I right click on VJ and go to properties, and I go to member of, you see that he's a member of all the groups that the administrator was a member of. This is a dangerous thing to do. Please don't try this. But you can do this if you want to have, if you have multiple administrators in the environment that you want to give them right to work as administrators. But rule of thumb is that your administrators should have standard accounts and then only use the run as or elevated privileges only when they want to do administrative tasks. So you don't give people administrator credentials for them to be doing their everyday things. It's very, very dangerous. So you keep that also in mind. So we are taking security tips also to make sure that we do the right thing when we are actually practicing some of these things. All right, so Vijay is an administrator. Now, what else can we do? We can add him to a group, but we've not created our own groups yet. So we just leave this. We can disable
bro,
the
what's up?
account. So when Vijay leaves, we right click on his
Nah, what's
account
up,
and then
Papa?
disable. Please mute your mic. And then just disable his account. And just there you can see that his account has been disabled. And you know it is disabled because of the white arrow with the black white circle with the black arrow pointing down. That tells us that the account is disabled. When I right click, because the account is disabled, I can enable the account if I have to enable the account. And then if I need to reset his password, right click and then reset the password. And because I'm the administrator, I don't need to know his old password. So that is the advantage of being the administrator. To reset someone's password, you don't need to know their old password. You just reset the password. And if maybe the account is locked, there will be a notification telling you that the account has been what? Locked. And so you should unlock the account if the account lockout policy is in effect. But this case, it says what? Account lockout status on this domain controller is unlocked. So it means that this account has not what? Been locked out. Then when you right click again, we can also move. So we want to put VJ in the if we put him in finance, we chop our money. So let's put him in marketing so he go and look for money for us. So put him in marketing and then just put him under users and then you click OK. And then he's gone. So the same way, if somebody leaves a particular department, it's just a matter of knowing where the person is going and then you can just move the person there. What else can we do with a user account? Let's go to the properties of a user account. Now, if the account is enabled for email, you can easily send the person an email if you have an SMTP in your environment. And then all tasks, it's just the same thing that is being here. But then we can also look at what resultant set of policies. Resultant set of policies, you want to know which policies will apply to VJ when he logs in. You can run a task to check which policies affect the person. So if, for example, the person comes to say that when I log in, I'm not able to do this, I'm not able to do that, you may want to know what policies is causing that. And then you can just come and run a resultant set of policies to see what kind of policies the person is having. Then we can cut. Cut is like the move. You can delete and you can rename. Sometimes you may rename an account for somebody else. Maybe because you don't want to create a new account for the new person, you can rename the account of the old person for the person. That one is also there. So back to the properties. So when we come back to the properties again, you can fill in all details for the person. You can add the address of the person. You can put the address there. But when it comes to the account, you can specify what we call logon hours. Logon hours basically allows you to decide, or we have something we call time of day restriction. Time of day restriction allows you, the administrator, to determine what time of the day a user is permitted to log on. So when I click log on hours here, by default, the person can log on all days at all times, 12 to 12. Are we okay? But if maybe, for example, we don't want the person to be able to log on a certain days, we can specify that particular day. Maybe we don't work on Sunday, so you can select Sunday and then say log on denied, and then Sunday will be cleared. The person will not be able to log on Sunday. Maybe we don't work from 12 midnight to, let's say, what was the name? 12 midnight up to, let's say, 8. This period, you can also say log on denied. And then we close at 6. You can see that after 6, if someone logs out, the person should not be able to log in again. So you can do whatever you want to do, but it all requires planning. And this must all work hand in hand with the policy of the organization. What policy does the organization have? What does the policy say? If the policy says we should implement this, then we do. So you, the administrator, you first need to know what the security policies of the organization is, and then you can do the things to meet those stuff. Again, this is just one user we are using. if you want to do more, you can select multiple users and you can still do this for them. You can also, I think, do this through group policy. So the things that we also have log on to. By default, once you're a member of a domain, you can log on to any computer at all computers. But if you want to restrict the person, you can also decide which computer the person can log on to. Currently, we don't have any client computers because we've not joined our Windows 10 machine. But once we have our Windows 10 machine set up, you can specify and say that this person can only log on to a particular computer. Or for example, you can create computer groups for the departments and then say that a user can only log on to a computer that is in their department. That is also okay.
Wait, please, I have a question.
Okay, you have a question. That's fine. Please, let's hear you.
Please, with the log on and the login times, right? What if you have about 200 users, okay? And then you are to implement that after 6 p.m. all machines are to go off or they are not able to log on again. Are you going to do it one after the other, or you are going to have to improvise
I mentioned that you can use group policy to do it. And then you can also select the users at the go. Right click on the users and go to the properties at once.
Okay. Thank you.
This
Is it
question,
clear? All right. So let's go back to the here. All right. So you can choose which computers that people can log on to. And then again, if the account is locked, you can also unlock it from here. And then there are some more policies here. That you can set. Some includes the cryptographic algorithms that the account supports. And then we have account expires, it says never. You can also decide that maybe the person is a temp or a contract person, and you want the account to be disabled after a certain period. You can set an expiration period for the account so that once the time is up, automatically the account will be disabled. Then we have the profile. So here, this is where the user profile is. When we say the user profile, this is what we mean. You know, when you go to your machine and then you go to this PC, you go to local disk C and you go to users. These are the profiles of the users. So we have administrator. This is the profile of the administrator, his desktop, his downloads, everything is there. This is where it is. So in some environments, you may decide to redirect the profile to a different location. Are we okay? You may decide to redirect the profile to a different location. And mostly we have what we call roaming profile. And then there's another called folder redirection, which you can do through group policy. And then if you also want the user to have a map drive attached to their name, you can also specify a map drive right from here. And wherever the person logs on to, the person will have a map drive that is attached to their name. Then the phone numbers, the organization can be put there. We have remote control. Use this tab to configure remote desktop service remote control settings. So enable remote control. So to require the user permission to control or observe this session, select the checkbox. So require user permission. So specify the level of control you want to have over user session. So at the end of the day, if the administrator wants to log onto the person's system remotely to probably assist or something, how do you want it? Do you want to just log on, or you would want the user to give you permission before you can access the person's system? So that is that. You have the remote desktop services. So use this tab to configure the remote desktop service user profile. You know, when you also do remote desktop, a profile will be created for you. That's why some people, when they remote into your system, their profile also created there. So if you want to do this, or you can say deny this user permission to log on to remote desktop session host server. You can also decide that this user can never use remote desktop. That is also there. And this is for the ports. So this user is a member of the following COM partition set. So you can specify the COM ports that the user can use. And then we have the member of. So again, because we added him to, we created his this thing from the administrator account. He's already a member of the administrator group. But if I go to, let's say, the Louis account that I created from scratch, and then I go to properties, and I go to member of, Louis is only a domain user, and that is all that he has. And then you have the dial in. If you want this person to be able to use VPN connection, then you can do that. By default, it says control access through NPS network policy. So what this means is that if as an administrator, you want to configure VPN from there, you also have to use NPS to be able to grant this user access. If not, you can just click allow access, and then the person will be able to establish VPN connections and all that. So basically that is the things with regards to user account properties. These are the things that you do with the user account. So let's quickly look at how we can do this through it's almost 8:30. I don't know if we can accomplish this, and I was going to look for a certain file. So I will look at DSAdd, and then also look at the PowerShell, and then we can call it a day. All right. Okay, so to use the DSAdd, you can go to the command prompt, or you can open the PowerShell. And you can switch between command prompt and then PowerShell. You can switch between command prompt and then PowerShell. That can be done. You can switch between command prompt and then PowerShell. All right, so I'm just going to switch between this. And then I am using command prompt because you can see the C there. So again, the script is like this. DSAdd user, and then you open quotes. And so you do CN, okay, which is the common name. And then equals to, Joshua Saki, so J Saki. okay, comma. And then the OU. Remember that now the OU is 3. So you are creating this user inside an OU called users. okay. And then this OU called users is in another OU called, where are we putting Joshua? HR. okay. And then this HR is in a domain called Maverick. okay. And then this Maverick is under a top level domain name called local. okay? So from here, we specify the first name and then the last name. okay? So first name, Joshua. Last name, Saki. Password, P at SW0RG. And then the next thing is he must change the password. Are we okay? So must change PWD. We say yes. And then we say enter. So you can see it says DS add succeeded. JSaki OU users this HR created. So if I come to the Active Directory and I go to HR and I go to users, we should see JSaki there. Are we okay? We should see
Hello.
JSaki there. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, talk to me.
The scripting is it case sensitive or
It is
any?
very, very case sensitive. No, so you can do caps, it will work, but you don't want to have caps all around your environment. But I think you can do caps, it will work. So basically, this is how you create a user using the command prompt ds add. Very, very simple. And then also use the PowerShell. You can also use the PowerShell. So we'll have to switch to the PowerShell. I think PS should do PowerShell. Yeah. So we are back to the PowerShell. All right. So with the PowerShell, I think I will prefer the ISE because that will make life easier for us. That will make life easier for us. All right, so we are here. So you know that we will need hey, Nana Bibi Aboko. All right, so new AD user, where is it? Active Directory. Active Directory. And the new AD user. Set. So new AD user. And then name. Just like the OU thing. Are we okay? Just that with this one, you have a lot of things to type. So who haven't we created for? Please tell me your name.
Moan,
Mention your name now.
Dominic.
Okay, so we have Dominic. Nwokpokpokpo. Right?
Mm.
All right. So Dominic, and
ELKOPO.
then we have so the next thing is the given name. So you just select given name. And then your given name is definitely Dominic. All right. And then after that, your surname. Your surname. All right. Then your SAM account, which would be like your user logon name. Are we okay? So SAM account name. All right. So that would be D Aloko. All right. Then we can specify the path.
Password.
So we can specify the path. All right. So this is going to, so you see why people don't like scripting. This is going to be in an OU.
Yes.
This is going to be in an OU. And this OU will be called users, right?
Yeah.
And this users is in another OU called finance.
We chop our money, so this guy.
Finance, and then finance is under the domain component Maverick. And then Maverick is under the top level domain component local. Are we okay? So
Yeah.
with this, we close. And then the next is to specify the password. Are we okay? So account password. Account password.
Down.
Account password. And then we can give it the P. And then we close it. And then enable. Are we okay? We need to enable the account. So enabled is true. Yeah. So that is all. Are we okay? But if we want the person to change the password at the next log on, then we can add other, what's the name, parameters to it. But I think that this should be okay. And I think this should create an account for us. Okay, so okay, it has to be in a bracket. The password has to be in a bracket. Oh, are we okay? And I think we should, this is what, cannot bind parameter account password, cannot convert the password value of the system string to type. Oh, okay. Usually there's a string that we add. There's a string that we add. You can either say that as secure string, or so we can do read host, and then we can do as secure string. So it's asking how do you want to store the password. Are we okay? It's asking how do you want to store it. I'm hoping that this one works fine. Input cover. Okay. Yeah. So I think that is it. So this creates our fine gentleman here in our Active Directory. And if we come to finance here, users, yeah, you should see him there. So there he is. So these are some of the ways that you can create your users. You can use the PowerShell, you can use the command prompt, you can also use the graphical user interface. So let me check in the Dropbox, see if I can find that file. Then God willing, tomorrow, the first thing we'll do is we look at how to create 100 users or 1,000 users at once and place them in the location where we want them to be. Because if you have to do this one by one, that is a lot of work. So we will just quickly look at that first thing tomorrow when we start the session. So any further questions?
No.
Let me just see if I can find the file first, then we end the session. Will I remember this password? Oh, really? This was my first email address I had in the world. It's very old.
The Yahoo
Yeah,
ancient account.
I just want to see if the file is there so that I know that I'm making that promise that tomorrow we'll look at how to create multiple users at once. And then afterwards, we will look at groups, and after groups, we will talk about I think we'll configure our second domain controller, because by then we would have finished with the setting up the AD. So after the groups, we'll look at setting up our second domain controller. And in setting up our domain controller, we'll talk about FSMOs, flexible single master operations. We'll talk about those ones and how. So thank you for making time for this evening. I think the Yahoo is taking time. So we'll end the session here, but I will follow up on the file and then make sure that it's there so that we can utilize it. I'm hoping that by the end of this week, we'll finish with our local environment and then start with the 365-bit, hopefully next week. And then look at how to link our 365 to our account here and then see how we can manage resources from there. And then let's see how far we can go. All right. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.